of that song, Grace, at the end of the programme, so you've got to stay with us. But first, any parent's worst nightmare is to deal with drug addiction within the family. Can you imagine the horror of twin boys, both addicted to heroin, and ultimately losing one to suicide? Well, that's what happened to Elizabeth Burton-Phillips. Although very sadly Nick died, many have said that his death gave his twin Simon his life back. Well, Elizabeth's book is called Mum, Can You Lend Me 20 Quid? A very familiar phrase. And I'm very pleased to say that Elizabeth is here with Simon. Good morning and welcome to you, Gloria. I mean, as a mum, there'll be mums all over the country, you know, identifying with you in one way or another. But I think, you know, the confusion is, and certainly within the book, it shows that although you knew that drugs were being taken, you did not know the extent of it.
Absolutely. We just presumed from the word go when we had our children that we would never be in that kind of scenario, and it's been a massive wake-up call for me to realise that drugs are out there ready to grasp your children, and it's just so important to get the message out there to reach families of the dangers.
So you knew about cannabis taking early on. And is this where the Mum, Can You Lend Me 20 Quid came in?
The Mum, Can You Lend Me 20 Quid was the hidden message, which was really, Mum, can you give me 20 quid for a bag of heroin? And I didn't know. I mean, what mother would think when their son or daughter says, could I borrow 20 quid, that it would be for a bag of heroin? But that, of course, is much further down the line when the boys were into...
Were you giving them any money at all for drugs early on?
Absolutely not, no. I mean, their drug taking began initially when they were 13 at school, starting with cigarettes, because people forget that cigarettes are drugs, and progressed to cannabis, and that was all kept hidden. It's a message that I should try to get across, that once you start on that, smoking cigarettes, taking cannabis, you start to get into the realms of secrecy and deceit and lying to your parents. And you know what mum or dad, when they see their children going off to school, secondary school, is thinking, be careful of the drug dealer, watch out for the man who's selling you cannabis.
So Simon, here you have, I mean, your lovely brother whom sadly you lost, but the two of you presumably had such a close relationship because you were twins.
Like any twins, I think, you know, there's a special closeness between the two of you. Yeah, we, throughout our whole lives, were very competitive, whether it be sports or anything really, and just spent every minute of the day with each other all the time, lived in the same houses, bunk beds when we were kids, you know, that kind of thing, so yeah.
So when it came to drug taking, was one fueling the other on, or were you joining in because he was your brother and you'd always done things together?
I think we both initially, when it came to cannabis at the start, experimented together. That was along with peer pressure and things like that. And then that gave us the sort of mind state and attitude of, you know, try anything once, you know, can't knock it till you've tried it, that kind of thing. And from there, I suppose we were really bad for each other, because we would spur each other on, you know, have you tried this, you know, that kind of thing. And that's it, pretty much went all the way through.
So then according to the book, then you went through LSD, coke, and eventually you ended up with heroin.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst for that? Was it a dealer? Was it your brother trying it? I mean, what was it?
Basically, there was a group of 20 or so of us that left school, 18, 19, went drinking down the pub like all kids do. A lot of us smoked cannabis, so we'd go out, have a few pints, and then go out to the car park and smoke a few joints or whatever, and go back in the pub. A person infiltrated the group who we thought was a great friend at first, what we didn't know was that he had a hidden agenda. And at first he came in buying everyone drinks, and everyone thought, what a lovely bloke, you know, that kind of thing. And we'd go out and smoke a spliff of cannabis. I remember going out and sitting in a car to go smoke a spliff of cannabis, and there was a spliff of heroin being passed around, and I didn't realise that you could smoke heroin in a spliff. So they said, oh no, you don't want that, and you're a little bit drunk, so you're like, oh, you know, well, give us a try, that kind of thing. Can't knock it till you've tried it, kind of thing, which stems back to the cannabis. And then over the next month or so, the cannabis joints were replaced with heroin joints, and it was as subtle as that, and you didn't realise what was happening. And then when you went to stop, you couldn't.
So when you were asking Mum for 20 quid, or asking money from whoever you could get it from, by that stage, was it an obsession? You had to have the money for the drug.
Well, at that stage, it wasn't an obsession. We didn't realise that you couldn't stop. We didn't even know about cold turkey until, I think it was Christmas Eve. And we also went, oh, we'll all knock this on our head, all of our friends, there were sort of 10 of us. And then we all started getting ill, and then the drug dealer was on hand to say, this is the, have some more. But
what was the lowest point for you? Because obviously this story is wide and, you could spend all day talking about it, but what was the lowest point?
I think two things will stick in my mind. One, my dear husband Tony said to me, it's either me or the boys, and feeling so angry with him, but thank God he did say that, because actually that galvanised me into realising...
But because life had just got so bad.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And he saved the marriage, and he saved everything, really. But the second thing that really galvanised me and made me wake up was to the chaos of the addiction, was when Nick injected in front of me.
Injected in front of you?
Yes.
That must be horrific.
It was horrific. I was trying to get him to his probation officer. Simon was sat in the back of the car and Nick in the front, and I sort of sensed him putting his hand in his pocket and thought he was taking out a cigarette. And then I realised that he was going to do that.
Now, for any mother, I mean, it's a huge decision, when your husband says it's either me or the boys.
Yeah.
And I think a mother in particular will give unconditional love.
Yes.
Very hard to say, right, I'm cutting you out of my life and I'm giving you tough love now. So
yes.
How big a decision was that?
A massive decision, but it was one actually that I didn't understand existed when I got on this treadmill of enabling and rescuing my sons, rescuing them from their problem and enabling them to continue. I didn't understand the concept of tough love because I didn't understand the power of addiction over the mind. And that's been a massive learning curve for me.
And how shocked were you then when your mum said, that's it, I'm changing my telephone number, I don't want to know you?
Well, that came in a letter, and we didn't believe it at first. And I remember trying to phone her, and she changed all her telephone numbers. The letter said, don't approach my house. And then I phoned her at work, and she picked up the phone at the other end of the work and just hung up, didn't say anything, and hung up. And I thought, really, we are on our own. It was a massive
breaks
shock.
your heart.
Of course.
Breaks your heart to
sadly,
do that.
the drug taking went on.
Yes.
And we have to spin forward now to the tragic day when you found your brother. So what happened?
We'd been out at a party around somebody's house and doing lots of drugs, crack cocaine and heroin, and that went on to small hours of the morning, which culminated in an argument between my brother and myself, and that was over the fact that we were trying to stop and he'd gone and used injected heroin. So we had a really, really big row, screaming at the top of our lungs to each other, and in the end he said, oh, stuff this, I'm going to go and kill myself. And I just thought it was empty threats. I said, oh yeah, whatever, go on then, that kind of thing. And then 13 hours later, I had to smash into his door and break into his into the bathroom at the end of his room to find him slumped on the floor, where he'd taken the shoelace out of his shoe and tied it in a tourniquet round his neck. And
such a tragedy.
Yeah, and he wasn't looking too.
And then at this point,
pretty,
you get a knock on the door from the police.
Yes, that's right. And of course, the knock on the door is every parent's worst nightmare. And I can remember my husband waking me. I didn't hear it, and I walked down the corridor of my house, and I remember my heart was thumping, that I could feel that it was going to explode, because I knew that this was the knock that every parent expects to get. But I thought it was going to be, I'm sorry, your sons are dead.
Yes.
And
I know that you work so hard now against drugs, and that's fantastic. You've managed to turn your life around,
yes.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the tragedy that your brother suffered has actually given you your life back?
Yeah, in a funny kind of way. What's happened is it opened up my world that I'd lost, my relationship with my family, with my friends, and everybody gave me another chance. And Nick dying spurred me on. I feel that part of his soul entered my body, and I now live for the both of us. And I, in fact, made a vow over in the chapel of rest over his dead body, and put that on top of his arms in the coffin. And
well, it's a tragic story, but I know that today you try to put that to good use. And just very quickly, you can see that Simon's face is on the Metropolitan Police's drug strategy for 2007, a real move forward. Yeah. And also just to say that you have your own crack at your own website, and you're helping lots of people all over the country. Can I just thank you both very much indeed for coming in and wish you continued success. Sorry you've had to go through all of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, there's just enough time to put some of your opinions, because you've been very busy, to our Heaven and Earth panel. This one comes from Glam, it looks like, and again about the Hitchens book.